and welcome back to the LEC ahead of MAD Lions versus G2 Esports. And as we saw during the previous game, we now have all the teams that are going to compete in the group stage next week. And let's check on the standings for a quick update, because as we said, Fnatic and Excel are now eliminated, and the 5 to 8 teams are now locked for the group stage, and the 2 remaining games will decide the rest of the standings. Any reactions to what happened in this game and the teams that are we're gonna keep on seeing them?
Yeah, because you know XL, you see them at the bottom of the standings. They made playoffs the first time in their org's history. They're not gonna make that again. Fnatic never missed them. Suddenly they're down there too. There's not enough time to really cover all of the implications of this. It's absolutely absurd.
Strawless Miracle Run happened. We did
it. Okay, the real
stuff. Let's go.
And I'm really hyped about this and to see how this team is going to transform in the group stage. But for now, let's focus a bit more on the upcoming game, MAD Lions versus G2. And here, guys, I want to focus on MAD Lions. Nisqy yesterday got his very first competitive pentakill on Sylas. We got to listen to the comms actually, and the team cheering him up. But yeah, that was a beautiful play from the MAD Lions in a very messy game from them.
Yeah, you know, it was a little bit back and forth both sides there, as, you know, trying to end there against Nisqy on the respawn. He's able to pick up all of these kills at the very end. Importantly, Nisqy and the rest of the team made the decision when they were in their opponent's base not to push and overextend for the win. They went ahead and got a reset for themselves, but I'm sure Nisqy, his first pentakill, is going to be real happy with that.
And I think that starts to show something of what we see in a commonality between our bunch of top teams now, is this clutch factor where it's not necessarily about always having a perfect game, but it's about understanding when the opening is shown, the big play you can have to...
that was not the right
one. Yay, thanks.
But yeah, in this one, it was very much about seeing the opening in a game which should have been lost and still being able to win it. I think that's the commonality between our top teams.
What happened there at the end of that gold graph? Because it was blue for a long time, and then just a little sliver of orange.
I mean, we've been talking about this, right? Like Team Heretics and their weird games and how they mysteriously lose games. But I want to talk about how MAD Lions mysteriously win games. I remember that the players themselves were like, it's not going well at all in scrims and trainings. We don't even know why and how we keep on winning games on stage. And for me, the one yesterday was a specific example of this.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the craziest. I don't know why we're winning at all to begin with all the throws. But I do think in general, like MAD Lions, their bot lane has looked fantastic throughout the split. And for me as well, like, I don't know, like Nisqy on a lot of these like team fighting champions is always going to be a reliable carry later on.
I actually have to take a bit of an L here, because in preseason, I was looking at this team and I was saying they have to play towards top lane. Chasy is a top lane carry. Carzzy's not had the best year. He'll be playing facilitators, and you also have Hilly roaming. They have completely shifted the way that they played away from what I expected. And as you were saying, Ender, this bot lane has stepped up. Nisqy has been a big factor. It's actually very different to how I thought it would go.
Let's take a closer look at the jungle here, though. And here I want to look at the side of G2, because Yike coming into the league as one of the best junglers maybe within the first 3 weeks. And he reminds me a bit of Elyoya in a way, and how explosive Elyoya could be when he arrived to the league. And I feel like Yike here is the successor maybe of Elyoya and what we've been used to seeing from him.
If you're going to have a comparison of players of similar styles, I think there's something to draw between these two players. When you think of Elyoya and MAD Lions as a team, particularly over last year and when they were on their championship runs as well, you think of them setting Elyoya up for success, giving him individual advantages. Yike, as the newcomer to G2, has actually been given a very similar scenario on G2, being given a lot of resources, being drafted towards, and now we get to see that same style of play between 2 generations of players.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I just feel like Yike fits this G2 roster perfectly at the moment. Like when you compare him and Elyoya, their champion pools could not be more different, right? Like Elyoya most played Sejuani through this split. Yike 0 games on Sejuani. It's all these like more carry-oriented champions. The Graves, Viego, Kindred, just goes down this long list of different options for him. And it's because Mikyx is still playing a lot of those engaged supports down on the bot side of the map. So Yike is allowed to play that style, then go for the invades, take all these champions that can really punish the enemy jungler when he has lanes with priority. Elyoya has found a lot of success playing a different style, that gank style with the Sejuani.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can understand with that draft there as well, the kind of the roles that they have. However, it does come down to this focal point of they are very much the driving force when things start going, when these start snowballing. Goldborg and I were talking about when it came to the G2 BDS game that they had, where it was very much about, can you shut down Yike? Can you shut down their mid jungle before they snowball something like bot, where Mikyx starts getting into the fray, and they start really snowballing everything on the map. It feels like Elyoya is in a similar situation, but he's the one initiating from the jungle.
Any expectations for this game? Because we've been used to G2 having some messy
Fighting.
games. Yeah, lots of fights. That's what I want to see. But yeah, under Nymaera, any expectations for this one? Fighting for top 2, it's an important one. And yeah.
Yeah, you know what?
interesting.
For all the European teams out there, Mikyx likes to look for a hook at level 1, so avoid it.
Just
Avoid
don't
it.
get hit.
Just don't get hit.
Don't get hit.
Or, I don't know, walk 5 people down into lane. Make sure he can't hide in a bush early. Hey, look, there's a lot of different options you can throw around there, but don't get hooked by him level 1 because your game is doomed when that happens.
Simple advice. Let's see if they follow it now. Before we get into the next game, following this morning's series of earthquakes in Turkey and Syria and neighboring countries, the LEC began checking in with our pro players and crew who come from or have family and friends in the impacted regions. In checking in with our players, 113, Nisqy and BrokenBlade asked to share a few words. Let's check it out.
Hello guys, we're here to raise some awareness to the incident that happened yesterday in Turkey and Syria. Prayers go out to all the people that got affected by this incident, and you guys want to say something to that?
Enkazda hayatını kaybeden ailelere başsağlığı diliyorum ve yaralılara geçmiş olsun dileklerimi iletiyorum.
Herkese geçmiş olsun.
Herkese geçmiş olsun.
Thank you so much to the players. It is a difficult situation to be in. And unfortunately, it means the players will have to push those thoughts aside, focus on the game. The stakes are very, very high. Welcome back to the caster desk. I'm Quickshot, joined by Dagda. The Mad Lions are taking on G2 with the winner guaranteeing a top 2.
Yeah, no, we'll have to see exactly what the plan is coming into this. Draven going to be immediately taken away from Hans Samba, so definitely don't want him getting his hands on that one. He has looked an absolute menace every time we've seen him on that pick. On the opposite side, though, I'm still kind of looking to see G2 going to keep their Maokai bans in. We haven't seen Yike go towards any of these mainly tanky supports. He is definitely aimed more towards the carries, things like the Graves, the Viegos, even the Belvets have come out as well.
I mean, when I look at the two teams, team compositions they've played throughout winter, G2 have felt a little bit more varied, a little bit more diverse. And the big question I have for this draft is, what do Mad Lions feel they can run into G2 to pick up the win? Because they've been a little bit more meta, a little bit more stable in their approach.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Elyoya plays, because Elyoya's been going back towards the Sejuanis and these kind of things, but like Yike is the new guy on the block, right? You kind of want to put him in his place a little bit, kind of show why Elyoya was considered and is still considered one of the best junglers in LEC, but we'll have to see exactly what he wants to go towards, because at least from the bans with the Elise coming through, it still feels like he's eyeing up things that are more team fight, engage focused, because you don't want to try and get caught out by the Elise in the early stages.
I love the projection here. Grudge match between Elyoya and Yike.
Maybe that says more about me than it does about Elyoya.
No, but I think it's true. I think in particular, Yike is one of the players that has surprised and really stunned a lot of viewers at home with his performance on the Rift. And the final ban here from G2 will be that Heimer. So Heimer, Ashe, Maokai, Ryze, Elise, Draven. The Yuumi still open and available. The Lucian still open and available. There's a number of those high priority picks, things that we have seen. Carzzy's got one game played on that Zeri as well, and instead it will be the Sejuani, something you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most played champion for Elyoya. This will be his 5th game on the pick, and it's just been so high impact, right? Especially when you don't have things like the Maokai or that can kind of match that teamfight presence, or also having the Elise there that can bully her out. It does make the most sense. Plus, you still got things like the Caitlyn, Zeri, Yuumi, as you alluded to, the Lucian Nami that are available. So it should be fine, but yeah, I'm going to go back towards, as we talked about, the more carry-oriented pick in the Kindred.
I mean, played that once before. He won the game. He had a 16 KDA throughout the course of that performance. I think, importantly, the way that G2 have played around their carries or their damage dealers has been very impressive. But will they complement that with Hansama locking in the Varus blind right now?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen kind of multiple different picks that they paired with this. I'm kind of curious to see exactly how they want to go about it. Since you have the Ashe off the board, the Heimer is gone, and we have seen weird ones come out, like we've seen the Kallistas and the Caitlyn starting to slip into that support role as well, where maybe this is where you try and bring it out, but it looks like Hilly and Carzzy might actually just want to fight toe-to-toe. Nautilus being Hubbard at the moment, but no, they're going to go back. It's going to be the Zeri Yuumi instead.
Well, Berlin does not like that one, as Yuumi is now locked in. We'll be able to complement that, deciding whether they lock in their mid laner or risk certain champions being banned away. They've already got some range on the side of G2. obviously the ability to disengage with that Kindred ultimate, the Varus ultimate, and it's going to be a complement of the Sivir in the bottom lane.
I'm kind of surprised to see the Sivir being the one that's locked in, because I did expect that they'd actually go back towards this area, just such a strong combo, but I think they're very worried about the push power that can come through from this Varus on the bot side, especially when you still got some of those weird picks that can be paired with it. Even something like a Karma could work out well. The big news for G2 though is double AD carry. They need to try and set up some sort of strong front line. So I'm still looking at, if I'm Mad Lions, ban away things like the Gnar, these kind of things on the top side. They can set up fights, because that's what G2 are really looking at.
I really do like this inclusion of the Taliyah in the mid lane. It'll be the first time this winter for Caps, but we'll be able to combo with Yike wherever he's going to move with that Kindred, be able to play top or bottom. And I think when you see this ball that's going to be grouped up, Sivir plus Yuumi, Sejuani plus Yuumi, if they start to engage on you, G2 could theoretically either prevent it, pick people apart, prevent them getting into that scenario, or they can start the team fights. So what is their priorities here for bans? Cassidy immediately removed. Mad Lions try to limit the solo lane options, ban supports here. For Mikyx, there's a lot of ways that the team comps can still shape up.
I think the big one is top, kind of looking at like Gnar, the Jax for BrokenBlade. I mean, personally, I really think you do need some sort of engage here coming from your top side, because you don't traditionally, we already kind of touched on earlier, see Varus with engage, right? Unless you're maybe looking at something like a Varus, but you don't want Mikyx to be your sole engage tool. So Jack's already gone. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Gnar one, the next one Mad Lions go for. And then it actually becomes a bit of a difficult one where BrokenBlade has to try and fall back towards something that's a little bit unusual on that top side for him, like even an Ornn, a Scion or something, to try and provide that front line for the squad.
I mean, it's also like difficulty of execution. I think when you see the 3 champions already locked in, more complexity in my eyes for the G2 comp and how they want to position these pieces. They will ban away that Cassiopeia in the mid lane, denying Nisqy the option. The final ban for Mad Lions coming in shortly. Once we get to these picks now, we'll start to see the comp shaping up. And I think the big one, like you said, initiation here for G2. How do they start their fights?
Yeah, and I think as well, Nisqy probably on the upside going to go back towards something like the Viktor for himself. He's been perfectly happy to pick this up. Good control mage. Can be a little bit vulnerable in that mid lane if you're able to get these seismic shoves, but should be relatively okay. And when you've got like speed ups from Sivir, the setup from the Sejuani, it's just a great team fighting squad. But I mean, we talked about engage for G2. Maybe the Leona, but may not be the case.
I mean, you talked about it. Varus not typically paired with that engaged support. I think the Lou something a little bit more traditional, what we'd anticipate. Similar with the common, that type of enchanter. But I think the biggest takeaway for me so far, I'm a little bit surprised at how this draft has developed. But what I'm not surprised by is G2 Esports had been the team that's been a little bit more creative. If I will call out once, there has been a common top lane already, so that could be a little bit of a flex depending on how Mad Lions round out the draft.
Sorry, I just had like a weird brain buzz that's gone. I'm actually thinking Alistair might be the pick here for Mikyx. Karma was already played by BrokenBlade on that top side. Alistair's great into the Sivir, gives you someone who can tank up the Sejuani, you'll turn around a lot of these engages, and the fact you can then actually have Yike try and play around this bot side to shut down Sivir Yuumi could actually work out really well. So I'm curious now if we actually see Mikyx try and go towards that one, as Chasy going to just take the Cassante. Easy blind pick into that top side, although may not want to give the Gnar across the BrokenBlade here if they actually do want to put this Karma bot side.
Now, do you put Karma top into Renekton and go for that, Alistair? What do you make of this final possibilities here? Because, again, if G2 go that route, it is a non-traditional approach. And they could take this anyway because G2 have shown throughout the course of winter a lot of creativity, a lot of diversity, and it will be a last-second switch there. So Swain now locked in. We're going to see where the lane assignments end up being. Swain top, Karma bot. How do you see this?
I think it's Karma top with the Taliyah mid and then Swain support, but I'm actually not the biggest fan of this. Again, you're very heavy on going for this poke style and then trying to have like Mikyx and Yike basically provide your front line, but it's so incredibly squishy. So I don't know. I'm not feeling what G2 are going for. Mad Lions just feels so much easier to execute.
I have no idea where these final assignments are going to land. I did a quick little search. Mikyx's got one professional game on Swain before it was a win. That little timer is making its way down, so I'm just going to quickly double check. Final positions, Swain mid, Karma top, Taliyah support. How does that impact out the composition is going to play out?
I mean, it does give you a lot of push down on this bot side, which Carzzy and Hilly should struggle with to a certain extent, but I mean, you don't really get good push in the mid lane for the Swain, so Viktor should be relatively fine to push in there. You've now just got a really easy team fight setup for MAD, and if you ever start to fall behind as G2, this team fight, this composition just becomes absolutely impossible to play.
I'm double checking if we've seen any Taliyah supports elsewhere. I don't think that I have just yet, as we're about to load on the Rift. Berlin, I have to ask, do you think MAD Lions will win? Oh, that's pretty quiet. Berlin, who thinks G2 will win? That's the cheers. We're loading on to the Rift for G2 versus MAD Lions. So welcome to Summoner's Rift as Caps pulls out the first Swain of the Winter Split here in the LEC. We're double checking around the world for that Taliyah support. Not at all what I was anticipating. And again, when I look at the two teams, when I think about them, the creativity from G2, the stability from MAD Lions, and I think more importantly for me, execution. This is a challenging team composition to pull off for G2.
A nice job from G2 though to kind of start off well. They managed to get the Q star from Elyoya as he has to hop over the wall. So his clear will be a little bit, actually quite sizably slower because you generally want to start off with your E into the W. So at least getting something of an early start here where Elyoya will have a bit of trouble. But again, I think G2, they really need to get off the bat swinging. Like, I'm trying to look at a if Yike goes to a lane and Elyoya matches, I don't know if there's a single one that they actually come out on top of, just because of how strong Elyoya is, how easy it is to set up and like burst one person down. So I definitely am curious to see how Yike wants to try and play this, especially when he doesn't really have, push across the board to just continuously evade.
And of course, Mikyx on this Taliyah is immediately going to get chunked out by Carzzy and Hylissang, dropped below 100 hit points, pushed all the way back. As far as we can see, this is the first Taliyah support in all the major regions, and he's already been chunked very low. The reason I'm interested to see this pushing power, if Mikyx can combo with Yike, the seismic shove, the minefield, there are a lot of tools that can then combo up with the likes of Swain and Karma, as we already see now Yike on the invades.
Yeah, and this is trying to punish, as we said, Elyoya have to start in that Q early. No smite, Yike will steal, and will force Elyoya away.
Dancing arrows, does he fancy the chase? Gets the flash, gets control of the jungle, and immediately starting to assert some dominance in this jungle grudge match.
He's going to immediately move towards mid. Nisqy has good damage, should have the wave pushed in. He can't exit out towards the bot side, but this is exactly what Yike needs to do. He needs to continuously stay on Elyoya's face, but Hansam and Mikyx don't have push on bot side. Caps doesn't really have push in mid, so this top end is kind of the only place he can really get involved.
Well, he's managed to exert some level of influence already. And Carzzy is being chunked down a little by that threaded volley. Both junglers making their way down to this bottom half of the map. While that's going on, BrokenBlade shoving in the top lane. In the middle lane, it's Caps already catching onto Nisqy with that Death Claw, trading back and forth. But I think the early levels, as far as the push playing out, somewhat anticipated. Yike may have some juicy targets to jump on if Carzzy sticks around.
And I was actually curious to see what Yike's pathing would be, because there was an argument that you could look at where instead of moving back towards his bot side, he actually moves in, does his own jungle, and then immediately moves up towards top side to catch that wave that just crashed from BrokenBlade. But instead, going to try and match Elyoya to make sure that nothing funky happens on this bottom side, because Mikyx had gone so low, thanks to the poke from MAD Lions.
Yeah, you can see the duo from MAD Lions pushing all the way under the turret. Both junglers about to pass one another's vision. MAD Lions got a couple extra wards in the river, so Yike decides to step back, not going to run the risk of being engaged on, and obviously his bot lane really desperate to try to catch some farm. They're down a small number of CS because of that pressure, and Nisqy doing a great job shoving into Caps.
Big win for Elyoya as well, but hang on. Does he go for it? No, he's going to back away. But big win for Elyoya. Actually guessed the Scuttle Crab that Yike's mark had spawned on. So denying that first mark, despite the good start going through from Yike, is pretty crucial as well. So at least the moment, even though you end up with this little advantage for Yike, it's actually these small goal leads with mid, in bot as well, that are adding up for MAD Lions.
And I want to also keep looking at the passive stacks for Yike. How quickly is he able to build them up? How much power can he garner from that? Because of course that was a very early lock-in. That Kindred pick was something that was cornerstone to the comp once again. going to be bashing heads here with Elyoya. The first 4 minutes of this game, Dagda, you talked about it, how important the junglers can be, and I think Yike at least applying some pressure, but hasn't, I think, meaningfully impacted the Mad Lions just yet. The top lane naturally being bullied as you would anticipate.
Yeah, especially with Chasy already taking a ton of damage. BrokenBlade will naturally have push there, so Yike is just going to, every single time these camps on top side respawn, move in. So I think Elyoya will honestly have to just opt in towards a split map. You sacrifice Chasy, you say, look, Carzzy, you're doing well, thank you very much for demonstrating. Let's just use the fact that you're consistently getting this damage onto Mikyx to look for invades on boss.
Waiting for the shove. Mikyx is low. Flash and heal is available to him, running a little bit low on mana. Carzzy as well as Hylissang doing a decent job here. We'll be able to pick up a significant amount of CS under their tower. We saw a little picture-in-picture there as BrokenBlade teleports to the top lane. So, both bot lanes shoving back and forth pretty even. Small advantage for Nisqy in the middle lane. That's BrokenBlade, who's currently generating a lead top. But Yike, unable to find any of those punishes as of yet. May be able to, you know, look for those opportunities as we're getting closer to those level 6s.
Yeah, I mean, I think a large portion of this is just how well Carzzy and Hilly have played this bot side. Like, there are ways that Hansan and Mikyx could get the push here, but Carzzy and Hilly have been standout performers for Mad Lions pretty much across the board, and they are about to get some pressure in this bot side to try and right those wrongs, but we'll have to see if it goes through.
I mean, look at the statistics there. Carzzy, as far as damage percent, gold difference, jungle proximity, the team is working around their duo lane. This time round, it's Elyoya that steps in, potentially anticipating Yike being there. Neither jungler eventually make a move though.
And that's why I like Yike trying to get involved in this lane. It does set up for early dragons, but I think one of the big things we've seen from Mad Lions is that when Carzzy and Hilly get a lead, it very quickly starts to translate across the map. With Hilly, even on the Yuumi yesterday, was like roaming topside with Elyoya to try and make plays happen. He likes getting out of this bot side, and it's feed the bot lane to feed the rest of the map. So I like that at the moment G2 trying to help out Hans and Mikyx and make sure they're going to be okay.
Well, right now, Carzzy's going to get slowed down by the hail of arrows. Some of the heal used as well. Seismic shove just dodged there. Spell shield working out for Carzzy. Dragon secured by G2. And I'll take a quick moment here just to remind everyone of the all-time head-to-head between these teams, because it surprised me. 17 wins to G2, 16 to Mad Lions. You can see the regular season and playoffs win-loss. It is a much more competitive head-to-head than I actually was anticipating. And both of these teams, if they win here, whoever wins locks in that top 2 for groups. This could be an early early experience of 2 of our playoff teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super hyped to see these 2 teams. And I know even the desk was talking about how bloodthirsty this game's going to be, but I think that's the problem when you know you're up against a bloodthirsty team, is like, you kind of want to feel out how things are working. Mikyx, though, will be spotted on this ward as he tries to make a play mid, so Nisqy backs off. And one of the big things is that because teams are taking it slow and trying to feel each other out, Elyoya has been doing a great job of getting all these marks that have spawned. Got the one on the bot side, got another one on the top side there, so Elyoya, despite falling behind a little bit, is getting those crucial mark denials from Yike.
Yeah, and that means that Yike will just come online a little bit later. It's felt to me like both junglers are sort of on the same playbook in terms of where they're moving around the map, how they're sort of shadowing one another. And ultimately, neither team's laners has been in a position to be punished. So we're dead even at the 8-minute mark. CS across the board is very, very close. And this time round, Yike will be the first to move on the Rift Herald and will have Camps stepping into the river to back him up.
Yeah, but this is what I love about when you get 2 really high-level junglers. It's just like, I know that you know that you're going to do this, so I know that you know that I know that you... And it just keeps going down the rabbit hole. I think that's why we've seen both these junglers match up so often. But Mikyx catches Nisqy.
Oh, look at the CC chain! So much damage. Flash still available. Drop below 100. And despite the Chaos Storm, Nisqy gets dunked for first blood.
Great job by Mikyx to get in towards this mid lane and get that advantage for Caps. I love the fact that they immediately move topside, but Elyoya will be able to get out. But they move immediately up towards that Rift Herald. And that's where, for Mad Lions and Nisqy, you think, okay, I'll hover to my bot to keep myself safe. But Mikyx finding that very quick roam to catch Nisqy as he was trying to play towards the safe side.
And the G2 fans here in Berlin going crazy, but just the crowd control layering was very well done.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Mikyx just barely catching Nisqy on the end of it. And I mean, you could tell Nisqy was trying to play it safe, had the ward spotted out Caps, but just no vision on that bottom side, so it gets caught by the Mikyx roam. So again, G2, we've seen so often how much of an impact Mikyx can have when he's allowed to roam like this.
I mean, and think about the kit. With that rock surfing, the seismic shove, the wall, tools are plenty. As the Chain of Corruption will hold just Elyoya in place. On the hunt thrown down, Yike using those dance of arrows forward, waiting for the book to get read. Hylissang is level 6. While that's happening, top lane trade, 1-for-1. Weaver's Wall from Mikyx separates Elyoya to the side. Here comes Nisqy. No Chaos Storm available to him, but Lamb's respite buys some time. Elyoya hops over the wall. Top laners, no kill secured. River fight, no kill secured.
I think you can kind of see how both these compositions want to operate, though, through that. G2 looking for picks, looking for skirmishes where they don't have to worry about those relatively low health bars in comparison to MAD Lions. But when MAD are able to group up as a team, that's when all this AoE damage becomes so threatening for G2.
And of course, can G2 peel backwards, buy enough time to re-engage? Because when you think of extended team fights into the entire composition for G2, it becomes very, very difficult. So possibility of like wombo combo looking for those big bursts from MAD Lions, and if they don't, it's going to be difficult.
And I'm actually curious to see if we get like an early Chemtech Putrefier coming out from Hylissang here, because when you look at BrokenBlade going Radiant Virtue, ton of healing. You look at Swain, ton of healing. And even the fact that you're going to have the Lamb's Respite there as well, there is a lot of healing that's going to be coming through on G2 side. So I think trying to opt in towards some of these earlier Grievous Wounds options are going to be very key for MAD Lions.
Oh man, so 1,000 gold advantage here for G2. First big ticket item starting to be picked up. It's Caps with that Rylai's in the mid lane. Has been able to bounce back a little bit. He was being bullied somewhat early on, but with the ganks and the roams in the mid lane, 0-0-1 has now managed to contain Nisqy to some degree. But look at the minimap. Elyoya and Hilly making their way forward. If Cap sticks around, there may be a possibility, but there's a number of players now making their way. With Dragon coming up, mid lane control is going to be the focus.
Chasy still pushing on that top side, has the TP to join as his BrokenBlade, but BrokenBlade won't want to with the wave of the position that it's in. You've got Carzzy fairly late to this play, so I think this will be MAD Lions just kind of going, hey look, we'll get plates on top side. We're going to be too late to the party. We're not going to try and go for this.
Well, maybe they fancy it. A lot of AoE here with that final chapter, Glacial Prison. They're firing it out, Dagda, and pushing G2 back. Hansama will now step into the fray on the hunt thrown down. The chapter, the prison, the CC blows up Caps. MAD Lions find their first kill. Hansama forced a flash over the wall. That's going to trigger a 1v1 in the top lane, and the Dragon's secured by MAD Lions.
Chasy immediately jumped onto BrokenBlade to prevent the TP, but he still might be in trouble.
Oh, looking for the BrokenBlade solo kill. Does he have the damage below 100 HP, 150 correction? Chasy's able to slice and dice his way out, so not going to be able to pick up the kill, but the Dragon goes to MAD.
And that is brilliant for MAD, spotting that Yike didn't have that ultimate available, so a lot of the defensive tools weren't there. They're already using that last fight, and now with that kill, Carzzy will have that Kraken Slayer for himself.
Yeah, I think if memory serves, he may have actually had that going into the fight. May need to double check that on the replay. The MAD Lions, I think, more importantly, they landed that CC. The Sejuani as well as the Yuumi ultimates layered on top of one another. 3 versus 3 being set up in the bottom lane. Caps roaming down. Yike is going to dance over the wall, starts to chip away, send Wolf forward. Rift Herald not really going to do a whole lot here as Hansama and Mikyx pushing it right into the wave clear. Still, look at that item difference, right? Kraken Slayer into some thrift shopping here for Hansama. He did have it before the fight. Thank you so much, production, for confirming it. So that power difference definitely showing up.
Yeah, I think as well, again, it's just the fact that MAD Lions, when they can actually set up the amount of CC, low health bars across the board, like, I mean, G2 have to scatter. Like, there's nowhere for them to go. Elyoya goes, okay, brilliant. I can actually lock up 3 members here. Let's run it. So Nisqy immediately has to step up. He does get knocked forward, but he's still fine. He throws down the gravity field to stop the rest of G2 moving in, and that just isolates G2 so well. This is where I was starting to say I'm not a big fan of what G2 bring to the table, because it feels very dependent on them having this early lead.
And right now, they don't. 12 minutes in, 1 Dragon apiece. Still dead even. Both teams looking to lock in that top 2 spot. The pool 1 seed, meaning they'll be allowed to pick their opponents at the end of today. For G2, let's look a little bit more about how they want to play this mid-game out. No towers have fallen. They're even on dragons. And I will ask you to predict how they play it out, because right now, MAD Lions stepping forward. Carzzy's dropped that ultimate. They're just looking to force the engage, because if they can get that death ball going, G2 are at risk.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how Caps wants to try and build this Swain, because I feel like a huge amount of this relies on him. I remember at some stage people were experimenting with Jaxxo the Protean on Swain because it's just so difficult for you to kill him, and I feel like nearly that would be a direction Caps could go if you're ever going to bring it out of pro play, but it just feels like Caps has to be the front line, and if you aren't tanky enough, if you're not able to survive the onslaught of damage that is going to come from these late game Viktor and Sivir, it's so hard for G2 to try and play this.
I mean, is there a world where G2 just scale up in an even game and just literally face tank everything Mad Lions throws at there? When you think of the AoE, the Karma abilities are going to be buffed up, the Ram's Respite as well, Mad Lions going to need to try make sure that their target selection is on point. And for G2, they cannot get hit by that CC. If anybody is locked down, we've seen already how they do get blown up. So it's a unique situation to be in.
I mean, it's so hard. You're super short range. I mean, it's on hit Varus. You have 2 stacks on Yike. You can see it just in the top right corner of his character model on the right-hand side. Elyoya will be fine. The big one is just not actually being able to be in a position to put out damage. Chasy jumping on you, Elyoya jumping on you, Hilly with this ultimate, and then just the massive AoE damage with the Ricochet, with Nisqy as well. Like, you all have to be pretty much in range of this if you want to try and fight forward, but you just don't have the help bars to do it. So, I mean, it's going to be perfect timing from Yike on that ultimate. Caps is going to have to try and play this front line and make sure that he's safe, but it does become so incredibly hard to do so just against what Mad Lions are bringing to the table.
Well, Mad Lions got that previous dragon, and with a minute until the next one, no towers have fallen yet. Mid lane is still bang on even. Neither team, pushing in just at the moment. And when I look at the vision, a little bit of shallow wards set up here from Mad Lions south of the river, north of the river. As the observers are highlighting, G2 have got some information available to them. But we saw a very big skirmish around the previous dragon fight, and ultimately it was that crowd control that allowed Mad Lions to win it. So I want to see G2's positioning. They've got themselves a little bit of vision now stepping forward and trying to contest control.
I think G2...
They are being jumped on. Nicky gets at least caught up from the assault. Elyoya takes a lot of burst damage. Hansama forced to flash over the wall, and Carzzy is chasing with the help of Hylissang's Yuumi. The final chapter thrown out. Mikyx running for his life as Nisqy and Elyoya being forced away in the mid lane. Here comes Chasy, takes down Mikyx in the middle lane. All of a sudden, BrokenBlade is next on the list. Yike, as well as Carzzy standing on top of the Lamb's Respite. The heal, managing to keep Carzzy alive long enough to trade 1-for-1. Nisqy's got backup from the cat, the you and me, as Chasy stepping forward with that dominance. There's fights and flamage everywhere, flying back and forth. Hylissang's doing what he can, but it's Caps. It's Caps so far in the Demonic Ascension, keeping Mad Lions back. Nobody can get in range, as Dagda was talking about. And finally, Mad forced to run.
I mean, that's the power of the healing. Caps having that on the Swain. The Radiant Virtue coming in for BrokenBlade as well, guaranteeing he's getting all that healing as well. Caps needs to provide that front line, and you can see it right there when Nisqy and Carzzy can't really do anything.
Man, Hansama and Mikyx were forced out so early on. But because they managed to survive as the skirmish was drawn out, they managed to back up the rest of G2 and literally face tank the damage.
And I actually think this is a mistake for Mad Lions. You want the front to back. You want to make sure that you're able to go into this as a 5v5. G2 are the ones that want these skirmishes, and G2 do a great job of coaxing Mad Lions into that position. Carzzy off to one side, Elyoya and Nisqy trying to run away on the opposite side. Chasy, he's in the bot lane, so it's all over the place. Round 2 though, as we move into Dragon.
This time round though, significantly fewer flashes available. Weaver's Wall dropped by Mikyx to buy some time. Glacial Prison holds BrokenBlade in place, and there's the AoE flying across G2. As soon as they group up, they get deleted. Mad Lions pushing into the jungle. Dragon is available for them. This time they back out, and again we see how the composition, when it is grouped up as 5, can control G2.
Also how ult dependent G2 are. No ult on Caps, no ult on Yike, no ult on Hansama. There was no way to try and contain Mad as they went forward. And I mean, Rift Tower gets thrown down, but it's really not going to get much.
The thing is, this is another game where Mad Lions need to ensure they set up these fights correctly. They need to ensure that they don't get run around the map is right now, BrokenBlade is under some pressure. There's only one tower fallen in that middle, top lane.
But I am loving this battle for top 2. The fact that now we're getting the blood, now we're getting the fighting. This is exactly what I wanted to see out of these two teams. And I mean, with Baron coming up now, you're going to start to see the teams fighting over vision on this top side more and more. You're starting to get later into the items for the likes of Carzzy and Nisqy. And we'll have to see exactly how G2 will respond. It's not going to be the Jack Show build. It's actually going to be a second Radiant Virtue that Caps is going for. So this is going to be a disgusting amount of healing that's coming in from both solo lanes.
There has to be some grievous wounds put in place. Yike, for the moment, only has 2 of those stacks available, but look at this, as soon as G2 group up, the Lost Chapter and the Glacial Prison do so much for zoning and keeping him at bay.
Also, fantastic positioning from Carzzy, right? Ends up being able to dodge away from so much that G2's throwing at him. He's constantly setting up Hilly to get that CC down as well. Really great fight from just the entirety of Mad Lions there.
And for G2, this drop they put together, that last second pivot with the Karma that was locked in on red side 4 and then going to Taliyah, if I recall correctly, on red side 5. They opted into this style of play, and it's going to be that Taliyah that's jumped on and locked in place, not taken down just yet. A few more pages of the book, and it's Elyoya that lands the final hit. With Carzzy backing them up, continues to chase forward, looking for that CC onto Caps. Hansama firing out those piercing arrows. Mad Lions find their 5th kill of the game. We're dead even on gold. And as I was saying, it's up to G2. They cannot afford to get pushed and bullied back like that.
No, but that's what Mad Lions are able to do. They wanted to establish vision around Baron. They got it. Nisqy on top tower. Carzzy has to take the long route home, but Elyoya is here.
Well, waiting for that prowling projectile. It catches onto Hansama. Chasy's got Dominus, but there's not many other ultimates. Nisqy's in that top lane as Elyoya again looking for that flail, trying to push them back. G2, a little bit of chip damage. It costs them their top tower. And Elyoya and Mad Lions still sticking around, still threatening by pressuring this middle lane.
This is the patience Mad Lion need to show, though. They don't have the ultimates to go for the engage to set things up, so they just posture, push G2 back. They're buying time for Nisqy in the top side. Mad Lions, this is what has made them so terrifying to face up against, is how good they are controlling waves, controlling space, and controlling vision in the enemy side when they get a lead.
Setting up all that vision around the Baron pit. Inside G2's red buff as a seismic shove will catch out Elyoya. Arctic assaults backwards, damage onto Yike. Chasy drops the ult. The prison, the backup from Nisqy. The pride has arrived, and all 4 members of Mad Lions barreling into G2. They get a double kill for Chasy. Caps cannot stand in the Lions, and it's 3 more kills.
And a Baron to boot. Mad Lions are popping off in the G2 jungle. There is nothing to be held for G2 here.
2 members remaining. Hansama and Mikyx, and Nisqy is trying to push them away. Baron is being burned down, and how much more can they get? Nisqy gets his 1st kill of the game, continues to chase with the help of Hylissang's Yuumi, chunking and bursting and forcing the flash. Again, crucial with 1.5 minutes until the next dragon. That is another flash secured. Mad Lions, 4,000 gold up. They are looking towards that top 2 placement.
I don't even know if you get to fight the next dragon. Mad Lions, you catch Elyoya. They try to make the play happen. Elyoya is able to step out of there because there's just not enough damage with the exhaust coming through. And immediately they collapse. And 3 members of G2, you can kind of get to see what they're thinking here. Look, double Radiant Virtue, we'll get healing, we'll manage to survive with Yike's ultimate, but Mad Lions just don't care.
No, they really don't. And the thing is, when a composition is put together like G2's, the onus is on them to execute and to build up those advantages. Dagda, you said it in draft. You wanted to see G2 getting some early leads, building up some pressure. They didn't, and now that we've got to these team fights, you're seeing how the comp that Mad Lions are putting together can, quite frankly, just run them over.
And I think a large portion of that is because of how well Carzzy and Hilly did play that bot lane, right? Constantly poking out Mikyx, they're not able to get that control, and I think when we heard Hilly kind of talk about how frustrating it is to hear that they're not the stable bot lane, that they are still coin flip, this is a bot lane for Mad Lions that has been so crucial to their success, has been so strong this split, and delighted to see them showing off again here.
Yeah, Mikyx's going to be the next target. Taliyah will at least survive a few seconds longer because Hansama gets turned and burned. No flash available to him. They've got themselves those Baron-empowered minions. Caps is now inside 3-4 members, but he's got no backup, no Labs respite to speak of. And G2 are getting wrecked inside their base with only 2 members standing. Mad Lions may fancy themselves a shot at the Nexus.
I'm pretty sure they do. Barrett up, nobody alive on G2. Mad Lions, they're crushing it.
Mad Lions able to push down the first Nexus turret. Chunk out Yike, take him down, turn to BrokenBlade. While Carzzy continues to focus on the Nexus. This is a pool 1 guarantee, a top 2 regular season finish as Mad Lions defeat G2.
Hugs all around for Mad Lions in what was an absolutely fantastic performance from start to finish. Elyoya constantly matching Yike. Carzzy and Hylissang getting control of that bot side and constantly finding these fights where they could use their composition advantage.
And I think it's very fair to say that the interesting approach to draft for G2 did not work out the way that it was planned. And I think, like you mentioned, we focused a lot on that bottom lane because of the fact that Taliyah was there with Varus, and once it was under control, Mad Lions just ran away with that mid game.
Yeah, it just felt very strange to see exactly how G2 went through their draft, because it kind of felt like they had some sort of idea of how they wanted to play with, hey, we're going to play around Yike, look for invades, make this Sejuani's life uncomfortable, but then they really just didn't know how to try and push that advantage forward in the draft. I mean, it's cool to try and bring these picks to the forefront, but you can kind of see there that it can oftentimes backfire at the same time.
It definitely makes things interesting when you look ahead to the best of threes, because you have no idea what G2 will want to play or prioritize. We're going to be moving on to a new patch, and they're also going to be able to adapt in-game. So this is definitely a red herring thrown into the mix when you start anticipating preparing for them for next week.
Yeah, I mean, at least you know you can leave the Swain open, I suppose. But I do like that you're experimenting with this, right? Because at least you're starting to see, as you say, look, do we have to ban Zach? Can we leave open Belvets? Like, there's a lot there that is flexibility for G2. I just wasn't the biggest fan of it in this regard, especially when you see what you're going up against. They just, we're going to run you down composition, and they got ran over.
Mad Lions, with the win, guarantee themselves a Pool 1 seed when we look ahead to the group draw show at the end of our show today. Means they will be able to pick at least one of their opponents in that first round. And for Mad Lions, just a great start to the year. We'll continue talking about them in a moment at LEC for your player of the game nominees, Chasy, Elyoya, and Nisqy. I just think they seem pretty rock solid, pretty stable, and the players are delivering up to expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that they have a very core identity helps out, right? Great understanding of their mid jungle. How does Hilly try and feed into that? Stable bot lane in Carzzy as well, just being able to kind of do his own thing and farm out. So it feels like they know exactly how they want to address the early game. Their understanding of mid game waves is fantastic. Like, there are very few holes that I can poke in Mad Lions right now.
And also, Carzzy and Hylissang, as far as a duo is concerned, have the 3rd least duo deaths of any bot lane in the league. That's not something I was expecting to say. The control, the synergy that they're working with, this is a duo that you have to be afraid of in groups.
I agree. I 100% agree. I think they honestly are looking one of the strongest teams in the league right now, and you've got to be aware of them.
You absolutely do. Congratulations to Mad Lions. We're going to head on stage where Chasy is standing by with Trouble.
Thank you so much, Trevor and Chasy. LEC 환영합니다. Ole, thank you so much for joining us again to translate. And my first question for you, Chasy, is playing against G2, their drafts are always so freaking unpredictable. Swain mid, Taliyah bot, Kama top lane. Are you ever worried what they're going to throw your way?
이제 G2 젠픽이 좀 신기한 픽이 되게 많이 나오잖아요. 그때 가끔씩 뭐 걱정이나 이런 거 있나요?
걱정된 거요?
네, 이제 G2랑 같이 할 때요.
딱히 걱정된 건 없고 그냥 카르마 탑 할 것 같다고 생각했어요. 이미 4픽 카르마 했을 때부터. 저희 할 것만 잘하면 이길 거라 생각해서 좋았던 것 같아요.
So it wasn't really that much of a surprise for them. We already expected that they were going to play Karma top, so that was not much of a surprise. And they were thinking if we just do well, then we got this in our bag.
Perfect. So we had this one. And Chasy, you were one of the best mechanical top laners in the ERLs, playing for X7 last year. Coming into the LEC, it's the same deal. 2nd in KDA with 4.2, least deaths over in the top lane as well. How has the integration in the LEC worked for you?
이제 작년에 벌써 ERL에서 탑라인에서 메카닉을 제일 잘하는 탑라이너였고 이제 LEC 들어와도 똑같고 이제 KDA 중에 2등이고 그리고 탑라인에서 제일 그 데스가 제일 작은 탑라이너인데 그거에 대해 어떻게 생각하시나요?
아직 엘리오야랑 그렇게 많은 호흡이 좋지 않다 생각해서 약간 저희는 바텀 위주로 게임하면서 저는 좀 사리는 쪽으로 혼자서 게임할 수 있게 팀을 이끌어가주는 안전하게 약간 그런 식으로 게임하고 있습니다. 나중에는 또 호흡이 좀 더 잘 맞는다면 탑 위주로 게임을 한번 해보고 싶어요.
So he thinks that there is still a little bit of it to improve between the relationship with him and Elyoya, and that right now he's just playing safe on top lane and they win through bottom lane. But when that relationship improves, he really wants to try and win through top lane once.
Oh, talking about winning through top lane, who is that one top laner in the LEC that has pushed you the most?
이제 LEC 탑라이너들이 중에서 제일 어려운 선수가 있나요?
아담 선수가 제일 어려운 것 같아요. 아담 선수가 약간 챔피언 폭이 특이해서 약간 많이 상대해보지 못해가지고 좀 대처하기 어려웠던 것 같아요.
So he thinks that Adam is the most difficult top laner to lane against. The reason for that being, on one hand, his champion pool is very unique, and on the other hand, also that he doesn't really have that much experience with him yet. So for that reason, it's Adam.
All right, great. Adam is also an aggressive top laner, so maybe we'll see what happens when he does evolve to the top laner that he wants to be. Now, one last question. How are you enjoying playing in MAD Lions? Because there's a lot of intricate personalities in the team.
이제 MAD Lions에서는 되게 선수들이 되게 재미있는 성격 있잖아요.
네.
그래서 재미나요?
네, 약간 다들 성격 좋고 다 좀 재미있는 사람들이어서 그냥 재밌었던 것 같아요 지금까지.
So he's enjoying it with them. He says everybody is really nice and kind, and they're also fun to be around with. So he's having a good time.
Well, Elyoya is waiting over on the other side on the telestrator. So is there anything you want to say to your jungler after this game?
엘요야한테 하고 싶은 말 있나요?
탑갱 좀 와라.
Please gank top next time.
Chasy, 감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ole,
Thank
for the
you.
translation. Over to you, Nymaera, with Elyoya on the telestrator.
Thank you so much, Trouble. I'm here, Elyoya's here, and Chasy has something to say to you. He says, gank top more. Anything more to say to that?
No, useless role. I'm not coming
Useless
top.
role.
I'm not coming top.
So, obviously, that might be a useless role. It seemed like you were pretty useful in this game, though. Coming off that victory, how do you feel you did?
I think we did okay, but I wouldn't say we did especially good. I think our draft was better, and they didn't execute their draft well, so we just took the win. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a play, which we're going to put up here as well, where we can kind of see maybe some of the way that they didn't execute the way that they wanted to. There was a fight around kind of top jungle into that red buff where it felt like things started to really fall apart. So before we start playing this, we can obviously see that you're kind of starting to look into the enemy jungle. At this point in the game, it feels like you've got a pretty healthy lead. You've got, Yuumi kind of hanging around with you as well. What are your thoughts at this point in the game when you're looking into the enemy jungle?
Yeah, at this point, we are already looking for a catch. Here in this, right now, Viktor is not doesn't have the top boy push, so we cannot extend the fight. But since we knew Kindred was bot side, right? Yeah, Kindred is bot side.
I see a ping, so yeah.
We could look for a quick play here. We could just one-shot Taliyah and then back away since she had no flash. So that's what we were looking for here.
Okay, so you're looking for the pick, looking for the one-shot. If we could just play the clip, let's see how this goes on there. You've got the Yuumi attached to you, you're kind of sweeping through this vision, and then of course you spot the Taliyah. Things start coming off, and you say that you don't want the fight to go that long. So now, if we can just pause right here, just pause here. So you were just talking about how Viktor didn't have the top wave pushed out yet, but you have found the pick. You've got a Yuumi on top of you, and it's also a Radiant Virtue on the Swain as well, so not huge damage. Does this change the way that you're approaching this now? Are you still looking for a short fight, or are you committing harder?
I think at this point, we should already back off and get top tower from this. We can get some deep vision and then defend mid lane. And right now, standing this play is not good because we are never going to get a kill. As you said, this Swain is not dealing damage, but we are not dealing damage to him. We are a pig and a cat, literally. Like, we don't deal any damage to this crow. So right now, we
so
just want to get vision.
We have like a full animal farm. We've got a pig, we've got a cat, we've got a crow. bit of a weird farm, but if we keep playing the clip then, so you're saying, okay, we're still looking to back off, but you're starting to catch some stuff. Carzzy comes in. Okay, if we could pause again right now. So you're kind of still in the enemy jungle. Have your thoughts changed at this point? You're pushing in the top lane. What's happening?
My thoughts were the same, but Carzzy had a different idea, which was to fight. I don't know what he wanted to fight because they were already out, they were in their turret. So he pressed ult and he was like, guys, we have to use this somehow.
Okay.
Either we run at them or we do something, but we have to use it. But here now we know they are grouping us 4 men into mid, so we want to make sure we can defend this tower.
So let's keep going then. So Carzzy says, all right, we're going for this. So I assume that you kind of come down, you're responding to this. And this is where things get a little bit crazy after this point too. Taliyah's come back out onto the map, but you're still up with this top wave. Things kind of going around. You're still kind of hovering between these waves. At what point is it really just, we're actually fighting now? Because it feels like you're hanging around this raptor pit, and as soon as Yike goes here, this is where it feels like it goes like really crazy. We'll kind of let it play out a little bit, because obviously things start kicking off. This combo hits, pause the clip here. It feels like right now, once you've pulled the Yuumi ult, that's where things get a bit crazy. What are you thinking after this last phase of play? You've taken some vision out, you've seen this play start to build. What are your thoughts?
So now we know we have top prio because we just hovered for him so he can push the top wave. So we know our Viktor is always going to come here first. And we also have like 5 men on the mid lane because we were going for mid turret. I was a bit of having like a funny moment there. I shouldn't even like get this low HP because now if they back off, I'm just low HP for fun. But they are going to make the mistake of committing when their Swain is stuck on their turret. And I think someone else was... Yeah, the Varus just based. So they shouldn't really take a fight. And this is the mistake they do, that they didn't have good map awareness here. They were not aware of where their members were, and they went a bit deeper than they should have.
So I think that's really important to note in terms of, actually, you've taken a lot of damage, but that means your carries aren't either. And that means that it feels like the damage isn't there to continue the fight. If we could keep playing the clip, we'll see how this kind of plays out. Because at this point, it feels like, you know, the Kindred's not in things. There's not that much threat onto the backline. Do you think the fight is just won at this point?
It is, yeah. It's always, like, at this point, this is super won. Like, they went through a choke point. Their carries are not there. We have Renekton with Fury. It's really over. Like,
absolutely over. And
really
of course,
over.
The play ends with this too. So really good to get your thoughts on how the map kind of changed, looking at the map movements between the two teams. I'm going to say goodbye to you now, but I think there are some people on the desk that would love to say some more to you. So Elyoya, enjoy the rest of the postgame.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nymaera and Elyoya. Come and join us. We have a lot to talk about. When it comes to this game, first off, thanks for joining us. Congrats on taking down G2 here. I want to follow up on what Chasy was saying during the interview, because he said that you guys expected the Karma to play, but I want to talk about the draft itself and everything and how difficult it is to prep against G2 when you don't know what they're going to throw at you. The Taliyah pick, for instance. I don't know if it's something you saw coming or not, but yeah, enlighten here.
I mean, we kind of saw it coming.
Okay.
I even said in the while they were drafting, this Taliyah might be support because maybe the E is good into Yuumi, but we were like, no way, this can't work, this cannot be good. So they got us, I guess, but didn't really go well for them. I think they were a bit optimistic in this draft. Maybe it worked for them in scrims, and yeah, they had like... I just don't think this is a good draft from them.
Yeah, it seems like it's maybe a little hard too, because like I do see there being like damage there when you get items on the Varus and the Kindred, but like with double Radiant Virtue on both solo lanes, like they tried to fight in the top jungle against you, and Varus wasn't there. So I just don't know how they're ever supposed to kill a Sejuani with a cat sort of hiding on her shoulder.
It's not only a Sejuani, I think it's also Viktor, because Viktor just like presses ultimate, like storm on them, bye-bye, they cannot hit. Like, their Varus is shorter range, and same for the Kindred. I think they have to snowball. They need to snowball through the early game, which they kind of got Drake, they got Rift. They got some lead at the beginning, but then they made some mistakes. We got some picks, and at that point, we already know we were going to win.
Yeah, it seemed like too, like when you're sort of like entering into a lot of fights, if the initial engage like worked out, like there was a fight around Drake where like Kindred didn't have ult available, so it was just like an easy kill. You just sort of like run in a straight line at them. They have to like dodge that first engage, or, like bait you in with a Kindred ult, and then maybe they can turn around a fight and win. But yeah, if you guys are getting the initial engage to work out, it's just completely lost for them.
Yeah, they have no one to tank our ultimate. They really rely on Kindred ultimate to tank Sejuani ult, but what then? Like then they have like a Viktor W, a boomerang spinning on all of them. It's, yeah, I don't think...
Didn't work. Yeah, so well for them. Yeah, before the game we were talking about the matchup between you and Yike, and we talked about how Yike may be the most explosive and promising jungler since you entered the league. What's your take on him as a jungler and how useful he's been for G2?
I think Yike actually fits G2 really well.
Yeah.
He's a really aggressive jungler and he's always looking to invade enemy jungle to create a jungle advantage, which I believe, even though right now is not the best meta for it, I think he's making a pretty good job of it. I think it suits them really well and he's playing really well. I still believe he's got some things to improve on, like more like positioning and where to be at certain moments. I think that was what has been lacking a bit from him, or what I could see. Even in games like this, because I remember one point when we were ending the game, we saw him at golems. At like minute 23, he was at golems, yeah. And then we could just run down bot and kill them all, and then we could end. So this is what I mean, that I think sometimes he's a bit out of position, but for now, I think he's been playing really well and he's surprised me with how he played.
I think it's interesting too, seeing like his champion pool come into play as well, because he plays a lot of stuff that maybe people are picking like here or there with like a lot of the range champions, 2 games on the Kindred. I think it was like the Udyr earlier on as well, Graves, Viego. When, I mean, you're just on Sejuani duty like more than half the time. A lot of people playing that, the Vi, a lot more of like these ganking or engaged champions. And I think it fits really nicely with G2 because Mikyx is also playing like kind of off meta with a lot more of like the melee engage style support. So do you think that's like a perfectly valid way for them to keep continuing to play? Because with the way they snowball through bot lane early and help him invade, it seems really solid.
Yeah, it is for sure. Like the way they have been finding these wins, it's been through that. They are creating leads either through bot or through mid, mostly through bot. But at the same time, it can backfire to them if they don't get to snowball, which is hard and you can't always do. You just get outscaled. And this game, they got outscaled at minute 12, minute 13. That's the reality.
It's bad when you get outscaled that early.
Yeah, like when you get outscaled that early, something might be off.
You never know what you're going to find when you open the G2 box anyway. But for today, MAD Lions come out successful. Elyoya, thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on making top 2. Also, we'll see how far you guys can go in the group stage. Top 2.
Is now a game? Vitality against...
I mean, depending on the results of the last game, but at least you're guaranteed top 2 here.
But maybe top 1.
Maybe top 1. Maybe top 1. We'll see with the last game.
You think Excel are taking this one?
I would bet my life Excel is taking this one. I'm optimistic.
All right. We'll see this after the break. Actually, last game of Winter Split regular season will be Vitality versus Excel. Stay tuned.